Young friends, welcome to the 11th part on the series on the Raichur War. So, in this part, we'll take a brief look at the kind of artillery used in that era. So, from 1500 to 1600. Now, we don't have precise information on a lot of the different types of artillery. So, I'm going to show you some examples. Now, these examples are what you can consider really the extreme and the bigger examples or the biggest ones. And I'll talk about this, but artillery, even in that age, you would get in all sizes and shapes, right from really small kind of tube-like cannons which were mounted on camels and even elephants, which were known as shaturnals. And then you had the medium-sized field pieces and the bigger ones and the smaller ones as well, so which could fire shots ranging from around 3 kilos to around 200 kgs. So let's have a look at this. Okay, let me go back to my slides. Okay, yep, there we go. And so this example is from Bijapur Fort. It's quite an old photograph, and this was reproduced by Jean Deloche in his book on fortifications in India. So it's a good book. It's available for free online if you just search for it using this kind of link. I'll put the link in the description box as well. You will come across that booklet kind of thing, but very good resource. Now there hasn't been a lot of research on the Vijayanagara artillery, so you get narratives by travelers and of the battles where they clearly say that these many different types of cannons were used and they were pulled by these big carts and so on. And also about rockets being used in warfare. So rockets were used in India for a very long time, but there was this myth which came in with the British rule, that artillery was introduced from the west into India, which is very crazy because at that point when these narratives were written in the 1870s, 1880s onwards, everything had to come from the west to India or come from somewhere else. So nowadays everything has to come from China. So India really can't produce anything on its own, which is quite funny because India was the prime source of saltpeter, or of which is the main component of gunpowder. For a very long time till you had the chemical, process for making explosives. So this cannon is from Bijapur Fort. This is known as Malik-e-Maidan. Now this weighs around 55 tons, and this could fire a shot. So cannons of that age usually fired non-explosive balls. So they were either made of iron or more commonly made of stone. So if you see some of these period Hindi movies, you see these balls landing and then flames going up, typical like modern explosion, how modern explosive go. But that was not the case. So with stone balls, what used to happen was, for example, Malik-e-Maidan fired a stone ball of roughly 200 kgs weight, and the same weights for iron balls. So that ball would hit a tightly packed mass of infantry, say Vijayanagara infantry, and that would explode on impact. So people who were right at the epicenter would be kind of dismembered instantly, but those who were in the surroundings, all the foot soldiers, they would be hit by these really sharp and fast flying splinters, and they would suffer horrific injuries. Many would be killed and a large number would be disabled. So this is very similar to, say, shrapnel of today. So if you even look at even some of the artillery shells, they explode, but the majority people are killed by shrapnel, really fast flying, extremely hot metal pieces. These are tank shells, artillery shells, anything. So the principle is basically the same. So this Malik-e-Maidan was used in the 1565 Battle of Talikota or Battle of Rakshasnagadi, and from the narrative, it says that this was loaded with what is known as grape shot. So grape shot is, it can be coins, it can be loose metal objects which are kind of bundled together and put into the muzzle of the cannon. So instead of firing a single ball of iron or stone, now we have got this hundreds of pieces of metal flying at high speed through the air, and you can imagine the impact on skin and bone. It would simply slice through, so the people would be sliced to ribbons. So if you fired one shot, this would kind of demolish, probably an entire battalion worth of people in one go. So Malik-e-Maidan was cast in 1549 in Ahmednagar, And Ahmed, all these Deccan sultanates, before the Battle of Talikota, around 20, 30 years before, they started establishing matrimonial relations with each other. So, this sultan gave his daughter to somebody else, and other sultan, married his son to, XYZ's daughter, and so on. So the Sultan of Ahmednagar had married his daughter to I think, the Sultan of Bijapur. So he gave this Malik Medan, which was cast by a Persian engineer called Muhammad, I think Muhammad Rumi was his name, and he had cast it in Ahmednagar. And this cannon was given as a gift to Bijapur, and then it kind of went round circle, especially after the Battle of Talikota. So I think this name Malik Medan was given after the Battle of Talikota. Uh, and let me look through my notes. So this cannon is made of a copper tin alloy, but typically cannons of that age were either made of cast bronze or wrought iron. So these are essentially iron bars which were held together by looped, you can say, iron rings. And I'll show you photographs in the next section. And gunpowder was typically used to discharge these balls or shots from the cannons. So depending on the size of the ball, the gunpowder varied. Could go from roughly 3 kgs to 11 kgs or even higher. I think for Malik Medan it must have been higher. And you can see this Malik Medan kind of placed on these timber blocks, but quite a few guns could be rotated. So this is an extremely heavy gun, around 55 tons. Like I said, on the battlefield you would have many lighter pieces of artillery. So from the Shaturnals to rockets, um, to some of the smaller more portable cannons which could fire, say, around balls of 3 or 4 kgs, much quicker. Uh, but this and these rings you see at the side. So when the cannon had to be moved from one location or the, especially these heavy ones, uh, wooden timber was hooped through these rings, and then they were lifted onto these massive carts. I'm not sure how many wheels the carts had. Obviously, they had to be very strong to cart them all the way to the battlefield, which was why the artillery pieces and the artillery duels of those days were not like today, where you can rapidly fire I don't know how many shots in a minute. So once the shot was fired, it would take a long time to reload it. Plus, there was also the danger of these things kind of exploding and then killing everybody, killing all the gunners around. And that used to happen as well. And you can imagine that for a single shot, if Maliki Maidan needs, say, 10 to 20 kilos of gunpowder to fire that shot, if you had, say, 100, 200 cannons, what was the quantity of gunpowder you had to carry? And this used to happen often in battles, and I think this happened when the Mughals attacked Golconda in 1688, I think. Uh, and the Marathas under Chhatrapati Sambhaji had tried to kind of go and reinforce Golconda, but that didn't work out. So I think one of the shots from the Golconda hit the besieging Mughal army outside Golconda, and it hit directly the gunpowder store, and I think that whole store blew up, and a couple of thousand people were killed on the spot. So it was a risky affair as in today. So let's have a look at the other guns. So this one is called Lam Chari. So Lam is a Marathi word which means long, and Chari is the fragments. So Lam Chari is something which can shoot quite far away. And Lam Chari, this weighs around 47 tons. And again, this is on, I think, Bijapur fort as well. So I'm not sure whether it's Bidar or Bijapur. So either one of those forts. And these are very old photographs taken by a photographer called Henry Cousson, who took photographs of all these historical places, archaeological places, and I think he's taken photographs of Somnath as well in Gujarat. So you can see this, for the approximation of the size, you can see this person standing here and compared to the huge cannon, and you can see these rings on the side which are used to move the cannon. So typically these would be statically mounted on forts, but these would be used on the field as well, like Maliki Maidan in exceptional cases. These were there to add that extra oomph or firepower. And so this lamchari is made from iron bars, and you got these welded iron rings which go across it. and this is a very actually very strong design. Okay, so let's have a look. Is there anything else for lamb cherry? Okay, so that's that one. And this is Landa Kasab, I think that's how it's pronounced, not sure. Again, quite a big gun. This also weighs 47 tons, but obviously shorter. But I think the kind of shot it would fire would be a little bit bigger. So I think the Jean Deloche or some of his colleagues, there's a 14 Parenda, and they found a storeroom with around 300 stone cannonballs, and some of the cannonballs had diameter of 45 centimeters, so quite big maybe. So 30 centimeters is this much, 45 would be great. So really huge balls. Okay, let's have a look. And this is kind of gun. So I'm not sure what's the name of this gun, but you can see this is mounted again on one of the Deccan forts. So you can see this. So this protrusion at the end of a cannon is called a trunnion. Now what a trunnion does is, you can see this fork-like structure which actually holds the cannon. So what a trunnion does, it kind of attaches the cannon to the this fork-like stand. You can call it a stand on the ground, and it allows the cannon to be swiveled up and down, and you can also move the cannon on the side. So quite often you would have a set of wheels. So you can see this enclosure for the cannon on the fort is circular. So you would have wheels, kind of a carriage attached to the near the front of the cannon, probably here, and the cannon could swivel, probably maybe 180 degrees. Uh, so it would have a very wide field of fire. And so that's a trunnion. And let's have a look at the next one. Okay, so this is another example from the from Naladurga. So Naladurga in Maharashtra, and I got this photograph from Wikipedia. But you can see this. So you can see the trunnions of the cannon on the side. It's a very smooth cannon, and you can see these welded iron rings on the other cannon, and you can see this pit at the bottom, and this entire mounting area is actually circular. So this pit had a kind of so this is the socket which held the pivot of the gun, and you had this again swiveling thing, so the trunnions would be fixed in those brackets, whatever structure or fork like structure was there, and the thing could be rotated, and you had a carriage mounted here, so the gun had a very effective field of fire. And the forts were very strong, because what typically happened with the forts was, even in Maharashtra, if you look at it, so the walls are made of black stone, and these projectiles used to simply bounce off. So this was more on the field, and in a defensive role, these guns were very powerful. So you can imagine with almost 180-degree field of fire, and if you had a grape shot, or if you put cannonballs, and you could calibrate the range, uh, you can imagine the effect on the invading army. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. So this is again kind of, so this is the socket, and this is the pivot, and these are the trunnions. And this is another example of that, and obviously now it's all been filled in concrete, and it no longer moves because the guns are disabled. But this kind of shows the mobility of the guns as well. And the range of these guns, so Jean Deloche has quoted another scholar, I think from Aligarh Muslim University. I don't remember the name of the book because I haven't read that book. I just read the quote on in Jean Deloche book, where the range in sources is mentioned from anywhere from 1 kilometer to up to 5 kilometers. But again, how accurate this is, we don't know, because in India the tragedy is that there isn't an awareness, or in the West, they even recreate these small naval cannons and then they fire test shots. You can see videos on YouTube where the Smithsonian Channel has kind of recreated stuff. So you get an idea of what the cannon did, what was its effect. But here in India, you got these massive cannons just lying about, and you need to recreate. And I think they are trying to do that recreation with some of the Maratha naval ships. Uh, but there has to be a very comprehensive study on Indian artillery cannons, and I'm showing you these cannons because I wasn't able to get a lot of I wasn't to get any information actually on the Vijayanagara artillery, how it looked, how it functioned, and so on. So if you got some information, just put that in comments. I'll cover that in one of the next videos. So again, like I said, field artillery came in a lot of different shapes and sizes. I'm just showing you some of the examples for which I could, get photographs and stuff. And you can kind of, pause the screen, but this again is this table is taken from John Delors article. It shows you the different guns they located. So the table is quite long. I have truncated the table because it wouldn't fit on the slide. So you had Malige Medan, 55 tons, and length of the cannon 4.36 meters, and diameter of the muzzle 149 centimeters, and diameter of the bore. So the bore is the actual part from which the ball comes out. And then you had Landa Kasab, Lam Chari, all. So this, so Landa Kasab was cast in the 17th century, but Lam Chari obviously is 9.32 meters, and diameter of the bore is smaller because it has to fire the shot farther. And you got these different cannons. So this kind of gives you an idea of how advanced metallurgy was. And in the next slide, or in the next part, we'll have a look at the cause of the war. So I've been kind of going into digressing quite a bit, but we'll start off with the cause of the war and the war proper. So friends, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please do remember to share, like, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.